folks, so I just wanted to touch on some of the autofocus issues again. As you know, I've done quite a lot of videos, and I'm going to link one of the more interesting autofocus videos I did, which shows lots of examples of the problems that Fujifilm has been having with autofocus on its Generation 5 cameras. But I went on to Fuji Rumors, and I'll link that in the description as well below so you can read the article yourself. But the article was saying that somebody had spoken to Fuji indirectly or directly, I'm not quite sure, but quoting from the article I've got down here, which said, thank you for your message and taking the time to give us your feedback. We take all comments about our products very seriously. We are aware of several videos and posts on social media regarding autofocus performance. Our R&D team in Japan is investigating a solution, and we hope to have an update on this very soon. So it does sound like some good news. It sounds like Fuji have at least acknowledged that there's a problem, and there certainly is. As I say, if you watch the video that I've linked in the description, you'll see some of the problems I've had, and certainly some shots I was capturing on the first version of the autofocus I can't do today. Say fast-moving subjects are a lot harder to get the camera to capture them. Now, I had a theory, and I have posted on the Fuji Rumors forums about this theory, and it's had very mixed opinions. I think it's upset some people, and I don't know if I'm right. I'm just trying to guess. So let's go into a very brief history before we bring up some live examples. So I'm going to show you in a minute a comparison of autofocus points on different a 5th generation X-T5 and an S5 II camera, and I'll go into the specs. But first of all, a little history. So if we go back to the X-T1, it had 49 and 77 autofocus points respectively. Depends on the mode you were in. This is the same for the X-T2. Well, not the same with X-T2, but it did have like a split. It would either have 91 or 325 autofocus points. Now, the X-T3, 4 and 5 have all had 117 autofocus points or 425, depending on the mode that you're in. Obviously the 5th generation camera, the X-T5, etc., those type of cameras, XH2, XS20, although the XS20 has an older sensor, they all added subject detection. But we're not entirely looking at subject detection today. We'll look at that from the point of view of the video autofocus. Now, the 425 autofocus points can only be used in single point autofocus. So, first example to bring up is the single point autofocus. And you can see, just got my notes down here. You can see from the example that indeed we do have very fine tuning of the autofocus, and we can select individual points and the focusing is quite accurate. And indeed, when I use this focus mode, it's very accurate, but it's very fiddly because it's like a tiny point. You try holding that point above a moving animal, it's not easy. Something more static, sure, you can do that. But when you switch to any other autofocus mode in stills photography, you'll drop to 117 autofocus points. I'm not sure about the tracking modes. I don't know if they use the 425. It's not obvious, but you can't shrink the tracking box down to a tiny dot. Again, if you look at some of the examples that I've done on earlier videos, you'll see that when we've got examples of tracking, the tracking box can't be shrunk down to a single autofocus point. So my guess is that in tracking, it's using 117 points. So it can't use all of them. And I wonder why it can't use all of them. And if this is the reason why the autofocus struggles somewhat. And as you can see from the example of zone autofocus, the boxes that come up to go over the subject are focusing actually on the test subject here, which is a computer joystick or a HOTAS. And it's locked onto the focus, and I'm doing it in relatively low light, but we're locked on, and you can see the boxes juggling around on the screen within the zone autofocus box. Now, if you think about that being a grid overlay, that is building up an image of what's going on to the camera. Does the camera just see one autofocus point in that box, or does it see everything in that autofocus point box? We don't know, but there are only 117 selectable, and that's the mystery. Because again, something was pointed out by somebody who was at the on one of the forums, was Sony a6400, or as iPic suggested, the a7 III cameras from Sony. The a7 III has more autofocus points, but the 6400 has 425 and has very, very good autofocus, although it doesn't have the same subject level detection. And if we've got the processing power, why have we got the problems? And this is the question, why we got the problems with the autofocus. Now, I did want to look at, we've looked at single point and zone, and just as a comparison, let's look at area autofocus rather than zone. So area autofocus is basically the whole camera area is a zone on the S5 IIX, and you can see the boxes are much tinier. So if you imagine this picture being made up of little boxes, you know, like a Minecraft game, like a really blocky 1980s computer game where it's made up of a really blocky grid, the smaller the grid, the greater the resolution. Think of like maths paper where you used to design shapes on the blocks of paper. The finer the blocks, the more granular the design of the shape could be, because you had more blocks to make it up. That's why high resolution viewfinders look better than low resolution viewfinders, because the pixels are smaller. And I wonder, does autofocus work the same way? The more the camera can see in the detail under the autofocus points, the more autofocus points you have, is that make it more accurate, since cameras as they are evolving always have more autofocus points. And Fuji's never really increased them from the 3rd generation camera. And interestingly, when we move to video on the Fuji cameras, we only have 91 selectable points. And video, and especially constant autofocus, is where people have had the greatest deal of issues. So where we found that once it's locked onto a subject, it's pretty good if the subject isn't moving much, like a bird. And again, watch my video in the description. I did some pretty extensive tests on this. I'll not bore you with it again here, just go watch it there. But once it loses the subject, it can find it very difficult to reacquire that subject. And this is why if you were trying to photograph a swift or a swallow, a very fast bird in flight, you need the autofocus to realise that it's way out of focus, nothing in focus, and to do a very quick hunt to find out if there's anything remotely in focus. And this is where the autofocus for Fuji is struggling. And I've got into other videos where I talked about portraits, and it struggles with portraits because it's not picking things out. But that's more to do with the AI side of things. Today I'm just focusing on the number of autofocus points, although more autofocus points might help it pick up fast, small moving objects. And I really would like to try it. I've got a Sony ZV-1, which has got pretty neat autofocus, but it's not the latest Fuji, the latest Sony camera. So I've never seen it, but I've spoken to many friends, and I've seen on forums people post about the Sony cameras and how effective they are with their autofocus, and they all have more points. So this is something to discuss in the description below, because it was such a controversial point. Some people are saying, no, the autofocus points don't matter because older cameras had fewer points and were better than Fuji. It's a software problem. I'm saying it might be a software problem, but it also may be that for some reason they're limiting the autofocus points. Can the software unlock all 425 autofocus points so you can use them all the time? And lastly, that brings me on to one thing that we'll do in another video. Fuji have talked about a new camera. And it's not X mount, it's not G mount. What could it be? I'm not going to speculate at the minute, but would it have a new sensor? Would that sensor have more autofocus points like the Lumix S5 does, which is 779 versus 425 for a similarly priced camera? XT5 and the Lumix S5 II came out around about the same time. One was just after the other. So there you go, folks. Food for thought. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know if you disagree. Let me know what you think is causing the problems with the Fuji autofocus. Let me think if it's software and it can be fixed. Do you think it's, or do you think it can't be fixed till there's a new generation of hardware? I am hopeful it can be fixed, because certainly they've made some aspects of it better, as I've said in older videos, but some aspects of it worse. And maybe if they can get the best of both worlds, maybe give it selectable mode, so you can select legacy autofocus mode and select advanced autofocus mode, so you've effectively built all the firmwares into one firmware. I know it sounds weird, that, but that's the only way I could put it. Maybe they'll do that, but, you know, over to you guys in the comments. Anyway, I just wanted to give you that update to say that at least Fuji have acknowledged there's a problem, and all the people well done to all the people who've been sort of highlighting the issue constructively, because, you know, I still love Fuji cameras, and I put up with their quirks, and a lot of us do, but I would like the autofocus to be like it was when I had the camera new, and I could take pictures of swallows and swifts more easily. But I would equally like it to be as accurate as it is once it's locked on, because when it does lock on to a subject that you film, like a bird on a branch, and you want to film its behaviour, it's really good. So there are some really positive things and steps they've made. They need to look at what works and try and remove what doesn't, and maybe let us have the ability to have all those autofocus points on, because I don't understand why that's locked out. I wish, if there's somebody technical in the comments can tell me and knows more about the sensors, please tell me why Fuji is limited to 117, unless it isn't 117, it's just 117 selectable ones and it's always 425. But if it is 425, why can't it perform like cameras like the A6500, A6400 that have a similar number of autofocus points and a much older CPU? The A6400 has been out 5, 6, 7 years. It's an old camera. Correct me if I'm wrong. Anyway, folks, there you go. So comment away. And if you enjoyed and got value from the video, please do like and subscribe. Anyway, see you all later. Bye.